Hey everybody, welcome to my kitchen. We're in my kitchen. I figured that if I was going to do a talk on spirituality and food, I might as well be in my kitchen. But it's also where I get the best internet in the morning. So we are here and we are live, and I'm so happy to be with you guys. I have such a gorgeous topic for you today, and it's a topic that's very close to my heart. It's something that I've been working on specifically really recently a lot, personally dealing and healing my own relationship to food and doing this great transformational healing work through my own spiritual practice. So today's training is going to hopefully give you a lot of relief. My intention is it starts to help you think about your relationship to food in a different way, and that it will also begin to give you some tools and practices to help transcend some of the addictive patterns that we feel may be keeping us stuck in the of having a relationship to food that doesn't feel healthy, that doesn't feel nourishing, and in many ways can feel like self-attack and self-sabotage. I want to give you some relief today. I also have so many great questions that came in from you. Thank you guys so much for posting your questions. At any point, you can also post questions in the comments that are on the page. We've got a chat that we've just thrown in here. So Allison Mitko's on the other end. She may read me some questions that come through. And I've got plenty because you sent them in already. So thank you so much for that. And I want to just begin by just thanking you for being part of our membership. We are doing some major things to make this membership even better. To be very forthcoming, we're working on an app to make the membership something that you can access at your fingertips whenever you want, and most importantly, to make it more accessible to you. So be patient. Technology takes a moment, but we are hoping this is a early 2018 development for the membership. I have incredible content that I'm preparing for the next year, stuff that I've never shared before. I'm also going to start to bring in some experts so that you can hear from other voices. And I'm going to make this a place where you really can't get this content anywhere. I mean, it's always been a place where you can't get this content anywhere else. So you have a very special access to my own personal journey, my own personal experiences. And that's a lot of what I'm going to share with you today. It's really what my journey today is, specifically on the topic of how I've been healing and transcending my fear-based relationship to food and my relationship to my body, and how I've been going through some really radical transformations. So I'm really proud to share this with you guys today. So let's begin. I'm going to pull up my notes here, and I want to take you through some steps. I hope you can pull out a notebook as well, because there's some questions I want to ask you that are related to this topic that I want you to be able to answer for yourself in your own notes, and start to just begin to start your journey today with kind of a little bit of self-exploration. Some of these questions may be questions you've asked yourself before. Some of them may be something you've never even, but I want to begin by really addressing the fact that food is an addictive pattern, that our unhealthy relationships to food are really just an addiction. It's like any other form of addiction, but often we may not describe it as addiction because it's something that we have to do every day. So it's easy to identify drug addiction as an addiction because it's not something that we're meant to do, or alcoholism as an addiction because when we abuse drugs and alcohol, we literally, our body begins to deteriorate. Our life becomes unmanageable and we become powerless over the substances. But in this case, we may not recognize that powerlessness and unmanageability because we have to eat every day. We have to, it's part of our daily life. It's not something that we can be abstinent from. Of course, there's certain foods that we can abstain from, but every day, food and our relationship to food is something that has to happen every single day. It's not something that we can avoid. So it's a little bit harder to diagnose as an addictive pattern. And sometimes we can have addictive relationship to food, and it doesn't mean that we're overeating or binging. It's just that the way we're using food is in a way anesthetizing a root cause condition, a fear-based belief system, a part of ourselves that we don't want to feel, a part of our emotional bank that we don't want to tap into. And when we don't have awareness around why we act out, in whatever form it may be, whether it be with foods or sex or work or drugs or whatever, when we don't have an awareness of why we act out, then we have an undiagnosed addiction. Ultimately, that's just the simplicity here. And I believe that the root cause of all addiction, all addictive patterns, is traumatic events in our life. This is something that, as many of you know, I've been addressing head on in my own personal recovery. I've just celebrated 12 years of sober recovery, 4 years off of sugar. And I almost want to say I haven't been counting days, but probably about 6 or 7 months off of binge eating. And not even really binge eating, because that's something I healed many years ago, but eating too fast, manic eating, let's call it manic eating. And the ways that I want to share with you today the ways that I have addressed this relationship to food, and all of the addictive patterns that I've healed. This is addressing the traumatic events that make us feel like we need to use the substance, the food, the drug, the drink, whatever it is, to avoid feeling the pain and the discomfort that lives beneath it. In my own experience, the more brave I have become to look at the belief systems, the energetic disturbances, the traumatic events, and the fear-based experiences from my past, the more brave I have become, and the willingness that I have had to look at these belief systems and look at these emotional disturbances, which they are, patterns of energetic disruption, the braver I've become to look at this, the more healing I have received. So the first step here is my offering to you, which is that going into these practices and looking more closely at these wounds is what is required to heal the pattern once and for all. Your bravery is required. I don't believe that you would be a member of the Miracle Membership if you were not brave enough to look at yourself, if you were not brave enough to go deeper into your subconscious so that you can heal the root cause of your conditions. I am proud of you because you've already hit the first step, which is the willingness to heal and the bravery to go there. So that's step one here, and I want to just honor you and just say thank you for being with me this morning, especially if you just, wherever you are in the world and you woke up and you tuned in and you said, I'm going to get on there live with her. It doesn't matter. If you're watching the replay, you're just as awesome. But being here with me is saying I am brave enough to heal. I am willing to heal. So just really take that in right now. That is not something to just bypass. Take that in, honor yourself, celebrate yourself, and know that you are making a massive movement in the success of your own recovery by being here with me right now. So that's really the first thing, is to recognize that this is an addictive pattern. And so why are we addicted? Because we are avoiding unfelt pain. We're using the food to anesthetize the discomfort so that we can numb out. We don't want to feel, so we overeat, or we starve ourselves, or we eat things that we know that we shouldn't have because we think we deserve it, and we want to punish ourselves. We don't want to feel, so we overeat and eat too fast so that we don't have to slow down. That was my story. In my personal experience, I would eat so fast when I'd sit down to a meal because so much of my traumas were controlled by moving so fast. So I managed my energetic disturbances, the traumatic events that were still living within me, traumatic events from the age of 6 years old, still living in my physical being and still locked in my brain, keeping me, the way that I stayed safe from feeling those traumas was to control every detail of my life. And I would control by overworking. I would control by literally trying to control everything around me, my circumstances and my relationships and my career. And even when I had a spiritual practice, I'd have moments of surrender. I'd go right back into the pattern of control. And then particularly, I would notice this control behavior show up when it'd come to dinner time. Dinner time would arrive. That would be the moment that I would be asked to calm down, put down the phone, be with my husband, relax, do something where I could be, calming my nervous system. And the moment that I would notice myself start to take that breath and relax, my fight or flight mechanism within me, the energy disturbance, the fear-based belief system would say, no, we cannot slow down. And that's when I would speed up and start eating really fast. I didn't understand it. I didn't have a voice for it. I didn't know why I was doing it. And when I began to heal the root cause condition, the traumatic events, the energy disturbances that live beneath that behavior, was when the behavior began to subside. I didn't need to understand the act of the behavior. I needed to understand why it was being triggered. So for me, it wasn't binging necessarily. It used to be binging. That was something that began to subside, but it was I guess it is binging in a way. When you're overeating and you're stuffing yourself, you're eating, even if you're not going beyond that plate, you're eating more than you need to. You're eating, you're attacking yourself. And in many cases, I realized I was abusing myself through that manic eating pattern. And I have to tell you, I'm so proud to share that as I have gone through the bravery of the steps that I'm going to share with you today of healing that condition that lived beneath that fear, the pattern of overeating has dissolved. The pattern of eating too fast has dissolved. I am so proud to say that I can taste my food today, that I can enjoy a meal today, and that I know when to stop. I promise that recovery is available to you. I can live to tell. Very proud to share. So here we go. So we have a few questions that I want you to take out your notebook and ask yourself these questions. So what is your relationship to food like today? If you're in the chat, you can post these in the chat, but just share, just like maybe you take it as some notes. You know, I binge it at nighttime, or I use food to numb out, or I get nervous around the dinner table, or I overeat every meal, or I eat things I know are going to hurt me. Just let's make a little bit of take down a little bit of a note. This is part of a process I want to take you through where you can start to delve in. So answer that question in your notebook right now. What is my relationship to food today? Take a moment, answer those questions for yourself. Okay. Now, the next question I want you to answer is, how is your relationship to food unmanageable? And this is like a beautiful practice that we do in the 12 steps when we do the first step, which is looking at the unmanageability. How is your relationship to food unmanageable? So unmanageability is, I will get off a call with my boss quickly so that I can go and eat that food that I need to do. So you're missing something to get to that food. Unmanageability is that, for me, unmanageability is I would eat so much at night that I gave myself heartburn. That's kind of unmanageable. That is definitely, I was making myself sick. I gave myself acid reflux. So looking quickly at what are the ways that your relationship to food has become unmanageable? Ask yourself that. I have multiple beverages for this talk right now. Bulletproof coffee, lemon water. We're balancing now. A little bit of both. Balancing act here. How is your relationship to food unmanageable? Make a list. Share it in the comments. Maybe Miko will read some of them to me. Miko, let me know if you see any moments of unmanageability. Guys, you can post them in the comments here. I want to hear from you if there's any things that you're posting that are feelings of unmanageability. I'd like to see them in the comments below. And Allie, let me know if you see anything. If you don't worry about it, but just interrupt me if you do.
Okay.
Unmanageability, if you have questions, post that too. But unmanageability really mean like I was eating so much that I would get acid reflux, right? Or I'm eating so much that I can't fit into my clothes. Or I'm at an unhealthy weight. Or I'm, many people I know suffer with celiac disease, unmanageabilities. I can't stop eating that gluten, and I know it's messing up my stomach, right? I know it's screwing up my stomach. So doing things that are harming you, noticing your powerlessness over it.
Going from one fad diet to another.
That's unmanageability, okay. Right, because you're just hopping from diet to diet.
And then doing great all day, but notice that they're binging at night sometimes when it gets late.
Okay, so these are patterns. Yep. Okay, wonderful. And to be super clear, let's really go deeper beyond the pattern and look at how it's unmanageable, right? So unmanageability with food can also mean I'll go out of my way to get that donut and I'll be late for a meeting, right? So my life is unmanageable because of this addictive pattern. Or I will eat off my child's plate because of my addiction. And in turn, they're not getting the food that they need, or they're feeling anxious around their meal. So let's look at the unmanageability. Let's get real about that unmanageability. Okay, let's get real about it. All right, you can come back to that list, but I want you to keep that list close and look at it so you can identify this as an addiction. What emotional triggers make you act out with food? So as you know, I used to need to control, and so at dinner time when I would slow down to relax, there'd be an emotional trigger. I can't relax. Being slow and calm is not safe. That was the trigger for me. So that would make me overeat. At times, I would notice myself in, if I was eating a meal and I'd get anxious because of something that was feeling out of control for me, I'd start eating faster and faster. So what are the triggers, the emotional triggers that make you act out? I noticed in some of the comments, one woman said that she had a boyfriend. The boyfriend was now, she used to go to the sushi restaurant with him, and now she knew that the boyfriend was going to the sushi restaurant with his new girlfriend. This was an emotional trigger for her. It spun her back into her old eating patterns. So what are the emotional triggers? Is it relationship triggers? Is it you don't want to? You may not actually know what the actual root cause underneath the emotion is, but you can describe it as I feel anxious and so I eat, or I feel inadequate so I eat. I feel. So what are make a list of the feelings, and I'd like you to put them into the chat so that Allie can share them, because I really want you to see that none of you are alone in this, and you can start to hear each other's stories. So I do this and that makes me, I feel this and that makes me act out. I feel this and it makes, for me, I feel afraid to slow down, and so I act out with food. I feel anxious, I act out with food. I feel unsafe, I act out with food. Allie, feel free to share your own personal stuff if you want to share here too. And if there's anybody that posts in the comments, let us know. Great. Share any of your emotional triggers. I want you to become very intimate with those triggers, because when you start to be able to witness your triggers, this is when real healing begins to occur, people. When you can be in the moment and see yourself in a trigger and say, fuck, I'm triggered right now. That's when you can have the awareness to call on your spiritual condition and your foundation. In that moment, if I notice myself, I am triggered because I'm afraid to slow down, I could step away. If I could witness that trigger, I'd have the awareness to step away and say, God, thank you for helping me. Or use the affirmation, I love my food loves me. Or walk away and sit in a meditation before I return to that meal. Or even something very spiritual act is to out it. Just say to my husband, I am feeling unsafe right now. That's why I'm overeating. So we have these moments when we can return to God when we witness our triggers. And so being conscious of these triggers is a huge step in this healing process. So I want you to make a long list of all the triggers, highlight the top 5, know what they are. Let me know, Allie, are there any triggers that you see coming through on the chat?
Yeah, so some people are saying that when they're bored, they go to food, or when they're losing control or feeling stressed out, they act out by going to the food. And this one's interesting. When she gets close to her goal weight, then she starts eating unhealthy to gain it all back.
Right. So there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of stuff around self-sabotage. And why would we self-sabotage? Often, if there's a traumatic event or an energetic disturbance, that we use weight to protect ourselves. We will use the food to anesthetize the discomfort, and we will use the weight to say, and this is often something that I see when I've been working with women who have had sexual trauma, and I'm not in any way suggesting that that's this woman's issue, but I want to just address it because it does come up often, is that women, we can use our weight as a way of protecting ourselves from being seen sexually. So that's something to acknowledge, to ask, to look into. If there are traumatic events that get triggered, or ideas or thoughts of traumatic events that you may not have dealt with that get triggered on this call, we always recommend to seek guidance. We recommend a website called emdri.org, which helps people find EMDR therapists. These are therapists that specialize in EMDR therapy, which is bilateral brain functioning, which helps heal the traumatic wound. Most of the big issues that we say we send people to therapy for, or recommend therapy for, is to heal these traumas, because in my personal opinion, we do need guidance when it comes to healing traumatic events and wounds. So I want to really make sure I say that multiple times on this video, which is that these practices that I'm sharing with you will begin to bring awareness to the root cause conditions. And then what happens is we bring God in and we say, God, how would you help me heal this further? And God begins to open the doors to guide us to the facilitators, the books, the teachers, the healers that will help us take our healing to the next level. Some of you, your healing may stop here with the Miracle membership. Some of you, it may continue on with a therapist or a trauma specialist or an EFT practitioner. There's plenty of people out there that can be of great service to you. And when you open up to receive guidance from God, you will receive that guidance of who to go to. Spirit works through people, and you will be guided. But I wanted to address that self-sabotage comes up when we want to gain that weight to deflect attention. Self-sabotage can come up when we have a really deep-rooted belief system that I am not good enough. And when we start to achieve those goals, we'll say, who am I to be great? Who am I to have that freedom? Who am I to feel that good? And it will just completely knock us down. That's why I always say when life gets good, work your spiritual practice more. All right, the next question I want you to ask yourself is so we've got these two questions of how is it unmanageable and what are my triggers? And we've got a greater sense of awareness of the patterns. So how do we heal these patterns? So we get to the root cause of the condition that lives beneath the addiction. And we start now, and we've begun that journey today already by witnessing the triggers. And the next practice is I want you to begin for the next week to take your notebook with you out throughout the day. And I want you to notice yourself when you're triggered. You may actually notice the addictive pattern before the trigger. So you may notice I'm binge eating, or I'm starving myself, or I've gone to the refrigerator again, before you can actually notice that, oh my God, I'm actually triggered because I feel unsafe, or I'm triggered because, so whatever it is that you're documenting, either document the addictive behavior or document the actual awareness of the trigger. In my case, I could document that yesterday, and this was unrelated to food, but it was a trigger that I noticed. We launched my new book, Judgment Detox, the pre-launch. We launched that there's a free manifesting workshop. When you go to this pre-launch, we sent out an email to 220,000 people. The internet, we broke the internet because we sent the email to a page. So many people hit the page at once that the bandwidth on our website wasn't enough to carry it. Extremely out of control for me. I felt really, really out of control. As you guys have heard over multiple times now, being out of control is one of my core triggers, because how did I stay safe from my feelings of traumatic events, my feelings of not being taken care of, my feelings of not feeling safe? To control everything. When the internet goes to that place, and of course I can't control the internet, I lose bandwidth on my website, I'm out of control. The child within me that, like, I literally began to act like a child. This is, and even though I had enough spiritual awareness to kind of push it down, it was there. And I could feel that rising up, and I could, even in the moment, just see myself spiraling out. And I was almost like this surreal experience of watching myself in a tornado, just spiraling out, flipping out. And thankfully, because of the repetition of these practices, in the middle of the traumatic event, which this is not a traumatic event, to be very clear, but sometimes the most seemingly insignificant things can trigger those wounds. I'm in the wound, I'm in the tornado, I'm on the phone with Allison and my husband and my webmaster and the hosting company, and I'm seriously trying everything I can to control. And in that moment, I had a great moment of grace, and I heard God say, this is your trauma, this isn't working. And in that moment, I was able to witness the trigger and choose again. I was able to see myself in the tornado and say, I choose to be calm, I choose peace instead of this. This energy is not serving the momentum of healing this issue. This is my trauma, this is my wound, this is the child that is afraid to be out of control. You can calm her down, you can self-soothe her now. I said a prayer. God, thank you for restoring this situation. And I let it go. I wouldn't be able to have had that moment of grace if I hadn't been paying attention to my triggers. Because what happens is that when we don't pay attention to our triggers, we just believe that is how we are. We believe that we are just someone who gets upset all the time. We don't even realize that we're someone that gets upset because we feel justified in our triggers. We feel justified in our reactions. So we're like that we're trigger happy, right? So there's trigger, reaction, trigger, reaction, trigger, reaction, trigger, reaction. And we're constantly in this place of just reacting, putting out the fire. It's fucking exhausting. It's totally upsetting. And we can't get out of the pattern until we witness how we get triggered. I'm sorry, I'm getting so excited about this. I'm not going to apologize. It's fucking awesome. Okay, so we witness how we get triggered. That's the work here, people. So that's why I want you to take an audit. I want you to look at those triggers all throughout the day. What are my wounds? When am I getting triggered? What is the feeling? What is the moment? What did that person say to me? For me, it's, I broke the internet. I'm triggered. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I'm triggered. I can tell you right now all my triggers. You want to hear? I'm exposing them to you now. I am out of control. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I am afraid to be seen. A big one, which is a weird one. You'd imagine that would not be me, but it shows up for me in interesting ways. And those are the top three, really. And sometimes if I feel in any way feel out of control, if I don't feel in control. Now, of course, that's gotten so much better, and I've been allowing myself to live and just trust and let God come in and believe that I can let and allow the faith of God to lead my life as I've healed these conditions. So bringing awareness to your triggers is step 2, paying attention to it, pay close attention to it. Take that notebook with you throughout the day and jot down your triggers all day long. My boss told me I wasn't good enough. My coworker rushed me. My husband didn't respond to me the way I wanted him to. That guy didn't call me back. What is the trigger? And you may not be able to recognize the trigger. You may only be able to recognize I went to binge. So look at I went to binge and then ask yourself, what happened before I binged? What was the emotional thing that occurred before I went to that binge? This may sound repetitive. You may be aware of this. I don't give a F. I want you to go and do it. I want you to take the time and the practice of documenting those triggers all throughout the day. And let me tell you, people, the more intimate you become with your triggers and the more brave you become to have the awareness of them, the sooner you begin to heal them. You cannot heal what you do not know is there. Ken Wapnick said, be grateful for the things that bring you the most discomfort because they reveal to you what you still need to heal. So be grateful for these triggers. Use them as guideposts and guidance to begin to claim and heal the root cause condition. Bang. Okay, I know I'm like literally a preacher right now. Breathe through the trigger. So see it, witness it. And at the first response right now, you may not have the tools. We're going to give you some tapping exercises, but breath is the quickest way out. So I want you to practice a tapping point that's the holy shit point, really. It's called the gamut point. It's a point between your pinky finger and your ring finger. It's right here. And I want you to witness yourself in that trigger and tap right here and say, I am safe. And breathe. I am safe. Breathing long and deep. I am safe. I am safe. Do this for 3 minutes. You can do it at your office, under the desk. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. And just tap right here in between these two fingers. This is your step. Witness your trigger and soothe yourself. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. Big one. And then the next step to healing that trigger is to put a new pattern in front of the addictive pattern. So the addictive pattern is, I'm triggered, I eat. I'm triggered, I starve myself. I'm triggered, I binge. I'm triggered, I go to the sugar. I'm triggered, I go to the junk food. I'm triggered, I overdo it. The way to heal and disrupt a addictive pattern is to put a spiritual pattern in front of it. This simple step of just breathing and tapping on the gamut point is a spiritual pattern. Going to your notebook and writing down, I witness my trigger. I pray to God to help me. I pray to the universe to help me reveal to me how to heal this. is another spiritual pattern that you can put in place of that trigger. Calling a spiritual running buddy is a spiritual pattern you can put in place of the trigger. Going to the Miracle Membership and watching this video again is a spiritual pattern you can put in place of the trigger. Reading a passage in a spiritual text like A Course in Miracles or The Universe Has Your Back, reading a short passage is a spiritual practice that you could put in place of the trigger. Breathing for 10 seconds is a spiritual practice. Using the meditation to release anxiety, breathe in for 5 seconds, hold your breath for 5 seconds, release for 5 seconds. These are spiritual practices that you can put in place of the reactive. So this is the steps. You're brave and you're willing to heal. You've looked at your unmanageability, that first step. Step 2, witness those triggers all throughout the day. And step 3, when you see yourself in those triggers, you put a new pattern in place of the trigger. Tapping on that gamut point, breathing in for 5, hold for 5, release for 5, calling a spiritual running buddy, writing in your journal, I'm triggered and I choose again. Going back to this video, whatever you do, whatever spiritual work feeds your soul and serves you greatly. For me, it's prayer. I just in that moment can say, I'm triggered. That whirlwind of the internet broke. I'm triggered. I pray. Thank you, universe, for revealing to me how I can get through this with grace. Thank you for calling in grace. So that prayer is the medium for miracles. That prayer dissolves the boundaries. So any one of these spiritual acts, whether you realize it or not, is a prayer. So I'd like you to write down right now, what is this spiritual practice that I can put in place of the addictive pattern? So when I notice that I'm triggered, what is my spiritual practice that I can put in place of that trigger? Ask yourself that right now. So I want you to write it down right now. You can say, Gabby's meditation from January 2016 in the Miracle Membership, or the Mudra meditation that Gabby gave us 3 months ago, or the gamut point, or I mean, you have years of meditations, people. If you are in the Miracle Membership, you have the archives. You have decades, like no, you don't have a decade, but maybe, I don't know, Allie, how many years? 3 years, 4 years? You've got 3 years of content there. Go return to it. Use it. Use these meditations interchangeably. Use them. Have them in your iTunes. Turn to them. Just go to them and listen to them. Can't wait for them to be on your app so you can just log it up, right? So this is the practice. I know I think I had a little bit too much bulletproof before I started. I'm really having fun though. Okay. All right. Any comments I need to be aware of, Allie?
Let me see.
Allie's like the voice of God here.
There's so many comments that it's taking me forever to load them.
All right, take your time. Interrupt me if you see them. Okay, so these are the steps. Let me repeat it. Step 1, you recognize that this is an addictive pattern. You're willing to heal it. You're brave enough to heal it. You see how it's unmanageable. You get it. You're like, I got it. I got this thing. I'm going to heal it. There's a root cause condition. You've looked at the emotional patterns. Understand why you're being triggered. Even if you don't fully understand, you know that you're being triggered. Step 2, you document those triggers throughout the day. You see yourself in the moment, you catch yourself, you're like, bam, I've got this, I'm overeating right now. I'm gonna go right to my notebook, my notepad on my phone or to my journal, and I'm gonna write it down. I am triggered now because my boss didn't make me feel safe. I'm triggered now because the guy didn't call back. I'm triggered now because I looked in the mirror and I thought that I looked like shit, whatever. Then I'm going to put that next energy, that next message through. Step 3, you're going to put a new spiritual pattern in place of the trigger. This is how we heal addiction. We replace, well, this is one of the big steps. We replace the addictive pattern with a spiritual pattern. What is your spiritual pattern that you choose? You write it down now, make that commitment to it, choose it, claim it. Of course, you could always add more. You can use things interchangeably. It doesn't have to be one thing, but choose something right now. Maybe the gamut point, maybe it's a prayer, maybe it's a breath practice. I like that I just gave you like little, like a dance for it. Gamut, prayer, breath. Whatever you need, you put something in place of it. That is the practice here. The the beauty of all of this is that you're going to start to, if you practice these 3 steps, you're recognizing it, you're recording it, and you're releasing it. This is a practice that was in my first book, Add More Into Your Life. Recognize, record, release. Recognize that I'm in my trigger, write it down, release it. Recognize, record, release. Recognize, record, release. All day long, the 3 R's. Recognize, record, release. Recognize, record, release. See it, bring it, write it down, bring it to God. See it, write it down, bring it to God. See it, write it down, bring it down. All day long. All day long. This is how we heal it. This is what happens. Okay. Then what will happen, it'll be so fucking awesome, is you'll be in the middle. Sorry, I haven't been saying fuck so much, but I'm just getting so riled up that I just want to talk about with this lovely F word. What will happen that will be so awesome is that you'll start to see yourself almost using these patterns. If you do this practice so frequently, you'll see yourself almost where this pattern becomes second nature. And you'll see yourself in the moment, and you'll just see yourself immediately choose again. God will come right in. Light will shine in. The light will come. It will be so fast. This morning, this is not totally related to food, but it's related to body image. I was looking in the mirror, and I was getting dressed, and I saw my butt in the mirror, and I thought, oh, Gabby, your butt's getting flat again. Instantly, the next thought that came in was, just do 10 minutes of trampoline a day and you'll get back to where you want to be. That was the thought. Just get back on that trampoline for 10 minutes a day and your butt will lift again, Gabby. It wasn't like you got to get back to 2 hours a day of Soul Cycle, or you got to push to do this, or you got to do that Tracy Anderson. It was this beautiful moment of just do 10 minutes a day. That was the voice of God speaking through me. It is so moving to me. It's going to make me cry. That is the voice of God. I know it sounds weird that God would say to me, just trampoline for 10 minutes a day, but that's how God speaks. God will say to you something so gentle and so beautiful. And I've been so entrenched in my Course in Miracles messages. And the message for yesterday, and this is just really important, I want to share with you. Yesterday's message was lesson 49 of A Course in Miracles, is God's voice speaks to me all through the day. God's voice speaks to me all through the day. And it's that whole practice is about realizing that you can access God's voice anytime when you allow it to come through and when you recognize it and you acknowledge it. And so in that moment in my closet, I listened to God. The voice of God came through and said, just get on that trampoline for 10 minutes a day and you will feel great. Your butt will lift. You'll be perfect. You are perfect. You are perfect. And it was so instant. It was such this moment of instant gratification, instant relief, instant truth. All I have to do is this. And it was such a beautiful, gentle voice. Just the moment of God. And I'm going to write this down because this is a story I have to tell again. This is such a God's voice trampoline. Thank you. I'm just always wanting to teach new things that happen to me in the moment. So God's voice will speak to you all throughout the day, and it will happen as you start to turn to it more and turn to it more and turn to it more. If you get into the pattern of asking God, asking the universe, asking God, asking Spirit for help, then you'll begin to hear it far more often than you can even imagine. Okay. Okay, and then the next thing I want you to do is at the end of the day, I want you to write about the miracle moments. So for me, that miracle today was that I let God tell me to get on the trampoline. What are the miracle moments for you? Another miracle for me last night that I really celebrated before I went to bed last night was I went to a dinner party. And dinner parties, when there was a buffet, used to be a real trigger for me because growing up, I never felt like there was enough. And I felt so unsafe as a child. And I felt so abandoned and not taken care of. And so when I would be around a meal, I would just get as much food on that plate. And it's so emotional for me to think about it. It's so sad. But I'm emotional because I'm doing so much work to heal this little girl. And so you get so intimate with the little girl that had this, these traumatic experiences, and it's emotional. But, she was so scared. So she would just eat so fast and she'd eat so much just to feel like she could get enough. And so that was a wound I carried for so many years, but I'm so proud to share that last night when I was going through this experience of being at this party and there's this buffet, it's like, I took what I wanted and I ate exactly what I wanted. And it was so good. And I ate so slowly and I enjoyed the vegan lasagna that I had. It was unbelievable. Vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free lasagna. And I was sitting next to this lovely Indian man who was telling me all about India, and I just had such a beautiful night. And then I looked at him and he's like, should we get seconds? And I was like, I'm full. So beautiful to have those moments where you just can see yourself taking care of the inner child. You can see yourself really, really nurturing it. I just pray for you. I pray for you all to know that freedom. That is why I do this work. I want you to feel free. I want you to know that freedom. I want you to feel that relief. I want that for you. Okay? All of you, it's available to all of you. And when we put the spiritual practice first and we dive deep into these principles, freedom and recovery are available to us. I want this for you. I want this for you. Okay. All right. And then the next step is take these steps to begin the healing the wounds that live beneath it. I really made a point here. There's no diet that will change you. Abstinence may help. Let's be clear, like saying, you know, when we're alcoholic and we get sober, we abstain from alcohol. There are maybe trigger foods that you are recognizing as foods that trigger you to binge more. So there is power in some abstinence, but for some people, abstinence can be another fear-based trigger. So I want you all to trust what's right for you, begin to explore what's right for you. For me, abstinence works, but for some people it might not. I have a lot of close friends that have suffered with binge eating and addiction, and they found that abstinence wasn't right. Like, it was better for them to just have that pizza when they wanted that pizza, because if they said they couldn't have it, they would want to binge later. So you need to look, each of you are unique and individual. You're all having different, we all have the same problem. We all have the same solution. We've been wounded and we detoured into fear. The solution is to choose love, but it manifests in different ways. So, you know, let your spiritual relationship begin to reveal to you what are the steps and patterns and practices that are going to be most effective for me and my condition. And so for some of you, abstinence may help, and for some of you, it may not. So I want you to be real with yourself about that. The power for me of abstinence is that I no longer give myself permission. It's like when I was first getting sober, my doctor said to me, I went to an addiction specialist named Dr. Rick Barnett, who emails me every year on my sober anniversary. This year he said, 12 years, congratulations, I'm so proud of you. Every year he emails me, it's so gorgeous. I saw this doctor for 2 months, and this is how God works. God puts people in your life, and he was only in New York for 2 more months, and he agreed to treat me, and he saved my life. So, you know, just God works through people. And so Dr. Rick Barnett helped me see that my spiritual issues, that I was having permission-given thoughts. As long as I gave myself permission to drink, I would wind up using cocaine. That was my pattern. Alcohol led to cocaine. So if I was giving myself permission to drink, the drugs would show up. So the thing about abstinence is that you can start to work on managing your permission-given thoughts. So if you give yourself permission to have that sugar may lead to a binge. Or if you give yourself permission to have that dairy may lead to a binge. So ask yourself, do I need to start to work through these permission-given thoughts? That's just something to consider. But if you're someone who's a binge eater and abstinence begins to be a trigger for you, I'd like you to work through that as well, because there's 2 sides to the story. Okay, we're running out of time here. Oh my God. Well, the good news is that if this topic is soothing for you and you want to go further with it, inside your Miracle Membership portal is the Finally Full course that I did on spirituality and food. It's one of my best courses, and strangely, it was shot with a funky computer in a yoga studio, but people to this day just love this course. And as a Miracle member, you get a 50% discount, so it's very, very affordable. And when you head over to the bonus section of your Miracle Membership, inside the bonus section, first of all, Allie put a link on the page, but inside the bonus section, you click on course discounts, and then there's a link to your promotional code for that course. So Finally Full is the course. If you feel like this was just cracking the surface for you and you want to go deeper with Finally Full, listen, it's a real old school Gabby. I think you'll enjoy it. I want to make sure that you know that resource is there, and let you guys remind you to take advantage of your 50% discounts on all my courses that you guys get as a result of being a Miracle member. So let me answer a few questions, and then we have to wrap this up, because I can't believe I've been talking for 45 minutes. I didn't even notice, because I'm having so much fun. All right, so here we go. Lauren said, Dear Gabby, 1 week ago I quit sugar again for the 3rd time. The last 2 times were rather successful. I didn't eat sugar for 6 months to a year, both times, but in this time I want it to last, especially now because I started to feel how good it is in my body. Where I went wrong the last 2 times is mainly when it comes to other people and food. So the moments were, 1, you get something sugary as a gift. Okay, that was a trigger for her. 2, you get a dessert or at a lovely dinner. 3, you as a tradition eat certain sugary things with your friends and family that are connected to an important moment like Christmas, Eastern, etc. Okay, 4, people buy some special non-sugar sweets for you that are actually also not good for you because they contain artificial sugar. How do you keep in the moment? Okay, so this is where her question really is, how do you keep the moment fun while saying no? And how can you bond, especially when it comes to holidays in different ways through sugar? Okay, great question, so good. So there's 3 things here. 1, permission given thoughts. Last night, I had a beautiful dinner. The dessert rolls out. I had a feeling it was a healthy dessert because this was like a vegan crowd, but I knew there was sugar in it. And I said, is there sugar in this apple crumble? Me publicly saying this in front of the whole table actually made it so I had to be accountable so that I wouldn't eat the apple crumble. I say, hello, is there sugar in the apple crumble? The woman says, yes, there's brown sugar in it. I state out loud in front of the whole table, I have been off sugar for 4 years. Thank you, please pass this to somebody else. Now that I've said that, I best be not eating that sugar because everybody at the table now knows that I don't eat sugar. That helped me. I don't know if that would trigger you, but that helped me. Another thing is I usually travel with my own BYO sweets. Bring your own sugar, okay? But not sugar. I make things with monk fruit sweetener. I make things with stevia. I make things with banana. Bring your own sweets, especially around the holidays. Bake something awesome. My friend Candice Kumai has gorgeous recipes. You can replace any of the sweeteners with monk fruit sweetener. Al, let's make a point to find some recipes. I've got some recipes on my How to Quit Sugar blogs. The best person to look at is I Quit Sugar. Is Sarah Wilson, has like recipe books on sugar-free recipes. Go bake, make your desserts, bring them with you. Feed them to people. Don't tell them that there's no sugar in it. Just be like, try my dessert. It's really good. And let them see if they like it. Just do BYO sweets. That's the best thing you could do. So you're celebrating too, and make your shit look good. Make your sweets look really awesome so that you show up and everyone's like, I want that cookie, and they can eat it. Okay? That is my suggestion. Get people in on it. Okay, Courtney, it would be helpful to have a go-to prayer, meditation, or tapping to use when I realize I'm eating or wanting to eat out of emotion. So I've given you this. I am safe. I am safe. That tapping point, I am safe. I am safe. I want that to be your go-to right there. Okay, sweetie? That's your go-to. Megan, we spoke about Megan with her boyfriend and the trigger of her boyfriend. Haley, with regards to spirituality and food, I was diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus. Okay, sorry, I was reading that properly. Since then, I have seen such fear around what we eat and what we shouldn't eat. Wouldn't it be better to stop feeling so guilty about food and maybe bless it before I eat? So Haley, I had a lot of my own personal stuff around. I still manage and maintain a healthy gut flora so that I can not have reflux, because that's something that I caused in my own body from my addiction. And when I was really healing the reflux, I literally couldn't eat anything without getting reflux. It was really stressful because you're like, what do I eat? How do I eat? And so one of the things I found that was really helpful was to prepare my meals ahead of time and to just know, okay, I'm going to make this banana bread because it won't give me reflux. I'm going to have this ritual in the morning. And creating rituals was really helpful for me. So I had a ritual of ginger tea followed by a rice cracker with coconut oil, followed by a shake within an hour from then, followed by a lunch that I had prepared the day before. And I became so ritualistic about it. Lots of broths. Obviously, it's much harder when you're eating out. So you may want to bring like a little is that you can use to bring with you. And the more you have your foods with you to protect you so that you don't end up eating that thing that you know is going to harm you, the better off you are. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it actually makes it a lot easier. So that prep work makes the whole process easier for you. So that's something to really consider here. do in the moment? It would be helpful to, okay, we've got that already. How do you manage your food and choices when you travel? Okay, so when I travel, sometimes I let myself off the hook a bit. So if I'm in Europe or something, I will eat that gluten, I will eat that bread, and then I know that when I come home, I'll be healthier and I'll get off of it. So I will allow myself. And the irony about that is that by allowing myself to have that sandwich on the airplane, I actually eat less. Like I'm not overeating on the plane because I'm just, trying to get something in. So I do always prepare. I never eat plain food, just terrible idea. I usually find out where the Whole Foods is, wherever it is that I'm going, so I can go stock up and get some things I need. I don't drink. I don't do things that I know will take me out with food. So strangely, like bread and stuff doesn't mess up my stomach, strangely. So when I'm traveling, I will use, things that I may not eat normally because I know cumulatively they wouldn't be good for me, but I'll eat them because I know that I won't get sick or I won't get a stomach ache from it. So I'm just conscious of the things that don't make me sick. And I definitely stay away from obviously all the things like that I abstain from while I'm traveling. Let's see here. There's, how do I eat mindfully when there's a lot of stress in my everyday life? So the work here is to heal the stress, it's not like how do I fix the eating pattern? It's how do I heal the stress? So I would recommend that you return to your meditations in the Miracle Membership, that you create space daily for that stillness, that most importantly, you begin your day with some kind of spiritual practice. When we begin our day with some kind of connection to God, the day is taken care of for us. Up and doing my A Course in Miracles affirmation for today, which was, I am sustained by the love of God. And sitting for 10 minutes in the meditation, I am sustained by the love of God. I am sustained by the love of God. Lesson 15, A Course in Miracles. Then the moment that I walked into that closet and looked at myself in the mirror and saw my butt was flat, God spoke to me. Just do 10 minutes a day of trampoline. And I was sustained by the love of God. So beginning that day so that you can begin to have less stress and less triggers, use the practices that I've given you, follow these principles, be brave enough to go into the depths of the wounds that you need to heal, and continue to return to your Miracle Membership over and over again so that you can feel a greater sense of safety, security, certainty, love, peace, ease, and just feel that blessing of love that comes through you when you follow these practices. I'm deeply, deeply proud of you guys. I'm so proud of what you've been creating here. I'm so proud that you're members of this community and that you've just got such light that you are shining as a result of being in your own spiritual practice. So I just want to thank you so deeply for your commitment to your own recovery, for your commitment to the voice of love within you, and for your commitment to the universe. And so know that just being in this membership says that you're committed. That's a statement that you make. I am committed to being free. I'm committed to being free. So today, when you sit down to your meal, say a silent prayer. I love my food loves me. Witness those trigger moments, write them down, recognize them, record them, and release them with your spiritual practice, whichever spiritual practice you choose to be appropriate for you today. I love you guys. Thank you. This was such a pleasure. I really got energized for you today. I love you all. We can say goodbye now, Allie. Thank you.